Because nothing costs $1 anymore, so you 2 pennies each time you go up $1. Louise, okay, you do the fucking math in your head. Buenas noches, Micronesia. I'm Troy Torres with Kandit News. Welcome to our studios in Hagåtña, Guam. Welcome to our viewers from all over the world, and thank you so much for joining us. It's late at night, and we're going to have a little bit of a fun show. We're going to mix in the news with a little bit of trash talk. But first, let's start by asking you if you can share this live cast at the bottom of your screen. There's a share button. If you press that, it'll give you options to share to your timeline or to pages of the groups that you're in. If you could do both, that'd be great and will really help us. And it has really helped us. Our viewership and our likes and our follows have skyrocketed. Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate that. Thank you. So we are gonna start with a missing dog. So Olivia O'Connor is asking us for some help in finding her dog. Let me just pull this up real big on the screen. Can you go to my screen, Cello? So Boo Boonie Stomp. Let me see. I'm so sorry. Not Boo Boonie Stomp. Oh, Boo. Boo is a female dog, medium-sized, about 30 pounds. She's about knee height, mostly a black coat with diamond spot on her forehead, white with black spots around neck and chest areas, white socks on all feet, curled up black tail with white tip. Now, she doesn't actually have white socks on. That means that it looks like she doesn't have white socks on. Okay, just in case that needed to be said. She's been missing since April 20, but she was sighted very recently on May 18 on Ipao Road near Daiichi Condominiums and near Ipao Mart. I think that's the name of the Korean store that's there. I know it's very politically incorrect, right? But I'm pretty sure it's owned by Koreans. So she was sighted there May 18, just walking around. That means she's out and about. It means that as of May 18, she wasn't a stolen dog. She can't find her way home. Maybe it was the lightning storms that were happening in April that really could, a dog can get discombobulated. Even cats, they might whenever there's lightning or thunder, it freaks them out and they don't know what to do, so they run, except that they're freaked out so much that they don't know where they ran from and they can't find their way home. Even the smartest dog, that'll happen to them. So if you see Boo, I don't know if you can see this. Can this be seen clearly on the screen? I can increase it. Hold on. So that's Boo. So again, she's got mainly a black coat with a white diamond imprint on the top of her head. She's knee height. She's about 30 pounds. And she belongs to Olivia O'Connor. So if you see Boo, please call 788-2530. Now she could be anywhere on this island. Like dogs can walk anywhere, but she was seen recently in Tamuning along Ipao Road. Lots of houses in that area. So hopefully, somebody out there has been giving her food and water because she seems like a nice dog. And if this is you, if you're watching, especially if you're able to share this to anybody who you think might know where Boo is, please just give Olivia O'Connor a call, 788-2530, and let's reunite them. Now, there was a previous post on Guam Pets Lost and Found. But thanks to a lot of sharing of there was a lost and found flyer, and then there was a found this dog flyer, and the two dogs matched, and hopefully the dog and the owner will be reunited maybe tonight even. So let me just close this out. So I'll do the shit talking after the news stuff. We'll just go to the news. Don't go to my screen yet. Let me just pull up the stuff that I need. We're going to talk about Tyrone Taitino and his wife, Senator Kelly Marsh Taitino. I'm sorry, before we do that, let me talk about something else. Filed today, go ahead and go to my screen. Filed today in the District Court of Guam, United States of America versus Lucille Torres, just for anyone's information, in her criminal case from 2017. This is very interesting. Normally, it's the defense that requests for the pretrial release of a defendant, but in a filing in federal court today, it is Fred Black, the assistant U.S. attorney, who is requesting. It says the government moves for a bail hearing to release defendant Lucille Torres pending sentencing. Defense attorney Curtis Vanderbilt has no objections to this motion. Respectfully submitted this 29th day of May 2019. That's not how it's normally done. Normally, it's the defense attorney who's like, Your Honor, we request we request that our client be released prior to blah, 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 blah. In this case, no. So what happened was Lucille Torres was brought in on violations hearings and by the United States Probation Office for violations of her probation or her pretrial release. She was confined for those violations, and now the U.S. attorney is asking that she be released. It doesn't say why, but we just thought this was very interesting and that it was newsworthy to bring to you. Okay, come off my screen now. I'm going to go back to my WhatsApp, and I don't want people to see who's on my WhatsApp. All right. So in our ongoing saga regarding Tyrone Taitino, the director of the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, and his wife, Senator Kelly Marsh Taitino, it all started with information that ended up being verified about Senator Kelly Marsh Taitino, for some reason, wanting to control the Hagåtña Master Plan and using her husband to those ends. Well, I'm looking for the... And so we started to wonder, and we started to dig, what in the world is going on with Kelly Marsh Taitino and Tyrone Taitino? What vested interests do they have in all of this? So what ends up happening is Senator Kelly Marsh Taitino does an interview with us. She tells us that she's never seen these letters that go between Tyrone Taitino and the governor, and then a response from Lacia Casil, the director of the Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Authority. That's the group that's putting together the Hagåtña Master Plan. Letters from her to the governor responding to Tyrone Taitino's complaints. Basically, Tyrone was snitching out Lacia Casil, but snitching out for something that she didn't actually do. And it was, we here at Kandit found it very interesting because it's not every day that you see cabinet members fighting using actual letters, public documents available to the public to conduct these fights. And so we figured, well, there's something deep going on here. Indeed, there is. The Hagåtña Master Plan, when implemented, will be the single largest development in Guam aside from the military buildup. So there's a lot of money at stake. And then when we found out that Tyrone Taitino had an executive order, I believe it's 19-10, signed by the governor, detailing procurement authority away from the General Services Agency and over to his agency regarding the Hagåtña Master Plan. We thought, well, there's something else here. There's something really going on. And then we find out that Senator Kelly March Taitano has oversight of the Hagåtña Master Plan. So then we find a conflict of interest. And then when we talk to Senator Kelly March Taitano, she tells us that she is not aware of the contents of these letters, and we found out that that's bullshit because she has in fact met with the governor and her husband and Lassie Casil at least 3 times since March when those letters started. So she was very well aware of the contents of those letters. She said she was not aware about one of the main points in that letter, that being the relocation of the Hagåtña wastewater treatment plant from Hagåtña to PD, and she was not aware that it was in fact the recommendations found in the stipulated order with GWA for compliance with the Clean Water Act where that relocation is recommended. She said she didn't know about that, but that's bullshit again because that was one of the subjects of the meetings with Adaloop. So when we hear all this BS and we hear all these lies, it makes us wonder even more. What are they hiding? What are they doing? Why is this such a big deal that they feel that they have to lie to the media and to the people about this? They have to cover their tracks about something. There's something going on here. Liken it to a marriage where, you know, the politician is one spouse and the people are the other spouse. When your spouse lies to you about something even tiny, insignificant, you might think, and then your brain starts to wonder, like it plants in your mind, why are they lying about that? And then you start to wonder, and you start looking through the phone, and you're like, who's this? Well, that's what we here at Kandit are good at. Finding out who the fuck, why the fuck, and when the fuck. So, in our digging, because now we're digging, we are so curious about what in the hell is going on at Adaloop. And it might not be all of Adaloop, it might just be Tyrone Taitano. As we've been digging, we found out that female members of the cabinet recently have been harassed by Tyrone Taitano. And so last night, Johnny Rosario and I did an ambush call on Janela Carrera with the governor's director of communications. We feel really bad for Janela sometimes because she has to get the brunt of all this shit. But you know, it's her job and it's what happens. So we were able to ask her about this last night. She said she would get back to us with some information. And earlier today, we conducted an interview with her, a follow-up interview with her. And let me get it from my screen so that we can cast it. Oh, we'll only cast a portion of this because it's rather long, just in case you missed it. Okay. Go ahead and go to my screen. Well, let's just pass that. Let's pass that too. There we go.
Hey girl, it's Johnny and Troy.
Hi, Johnny and Troy.
Hi. Disclaimer, you're live. So we wanted to know whether the governor has given you a statement on the reaction to this whole Tyrone Taitano thing and women in the workplace.
Okay, so I'm actually still working on getting information. I have some information I can't share with you.
Okay.
But you know, there's still some other things that I'm following up on.
Okay.
So I did speak with Laska.
Okay.
And she told me that no such thing ever happened. There was never an altercation or even an attempted assault on her.
Okay, and she's a cabinet member, right?
Sorry?
She's a cabinet member.
Laska?
Yes.
Yes.
And she works at the will of the governor, correct?
Yes, Martina Cassell, yes, she is the executive director of the Veterinary Restoration
Mhm.
and Redevelopment.
Okay. And what about Vera Tapasya?
So Vera says that she just decided it was not that level where she felt threatened or just that she wouldn't even characterize it as a verbal assault.
So, is she a classified employee?
Definitely not, not that type.
Is she a classified employee?
Vera?
Yeah.
No, I believe she is also a cabinet member.
She's unclassified, so she also works at the will of the governor.
Correct.
So she can be fired. They both can be fired at any time.
Any unclassified employee works measure cabinet.
So our specific question wasn't, but we never said there was an altercation. What we said was that Tyrone was yelling and cussing her out on the phone. Was Tyrone Tysono yelling and cussing out Vera Tapasya on the phone? And if so, why?
Yeah, that's Vera said that that's not what happened.
So Vera said that she was not yelled at or cussed out on the
There
phone.
was a disagreement.
There was a disagreement. What was the nature of the disagreement?
I don't know. I didn't ask for the station to disagreement was.
And was it a professional phone call, as in from one professional phone to another professional phone, or was it from Tyrone Tysono to Vera Tapasya's personal home number?
That I'm not sure. I did not ask Sarah what phone call or what numbers were used in this number.
Was it during working hours or after working hours?
I'm not sure. I didn't ask for very. So really the only thing that I spoke with her about is wanted to find out if she felt threatened or if she thought that she was verbally assaulted. And those were the only details I was able to get from her.
With regard to Lastia Casil, were you able to ask Tyrone Tysono specifically if he became angry and aggressive and jumped up from the table and lunged toward her?
I've actually not spoken with Tyrone Tysono, but when I did speak with Lastia, she said that he had not had any contact with I since last week, which was a regular meeting that they all had. So there was nothing significant. It was an uneventful.
Does the administration believe Tyrone Tysono has an anger management issue?
I don't think that that's, until we have all the details. I've not experienced that in Thai. Every encounter that I've ever had in Thai has always been, very professional in nature. So at least for me, have no reason to say that about him. And with everybody that I spoke with, with Sarah, they both say that with the stuff they experienced that they had. And you can put it this. Was I going to say this?
Sorry?
Okay.
Say it again.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Sorry.
Do you believe that Tyrone Tysono is bullying female members of his staff?
Pardon?
Does the governor's office have a reason to believe that is the governor's office aware that Tyrone Tysono may be bullying female members of his staff?
At this time, that's not what, at least based on what I tried to gather, the information that I tried to get, I'm not, that's not the finding.
That's not the findings so far.
I was actually going to ask you, I had tried to call you today to ask you if you had, you mentioned something about a recording.
Yes.
And I know it's first information, but if there's anything to share with us, that's really the only other area that I would need to look into to see if,
Yeah, releasing that would identify the source. So, did your chief of staff, Tony Babalta, have to intervene in the matter with Vera Tapasya?
No, actually.
So there was no communication between Tony Babalta and either Tyrone Tysono or Vera Tapasya?
I don't know the exact details, whether or not they had discussions or meetings
or a phone call?
Well, the specific question was about an email. So I asked him about email. But, as far as, trying to handle the situation, I don't know. I don't have those details. I'll have to speak with them, and find out exactly, how because it's expensive my involvement with this story is at night when you can ask,
Yeah.
interview, Tyrone and Lafayette. And I connected you with Lafayette. And that was really the extent of my involvement. After that, I spoken with many of them about,
Can you find out from the chief of staff whether he had to communicate or he did communicate in any way with Vera Tapasya about the verbal abuse by Tyrone Taitino?
I'm sure I can ask, but I think that question has been answered because I did speak with other.
Well, you said that specifically to the email, so I'm asking specifically any communication whatsoever.
Okay.
And then lastly, Janella is the.
Communications that were like email form or?
I'm sorry?
When you say communications, you mean like email or?
Conversation, chat, WhatsApp, anything.
Okay. I can follow.
Yeah, and then lastly, is the governor's office cognizant that as a receiver of federal funds, being the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, any sort of attempt to circumvent any process for reporting of abuse against women would be a violation of Title 16?
I'm sorry. Is the governor's office
Is the governor's office cognizant that any attempt to circumvent any processes in the reporting of harassment or bullying or abuse toward female employees would violate federal law? I mean, I'm just asking if you guys are treading carefully on this matter.
You mean like hypothetically, or are you asking?
I'm asking specifically to this case because you're telling.
Okay, so we can go back to me now. So, so Title 16 is this federal code where, well, there's a lot of stuff said in it, but one of the things that's important to local governments throughout the country is that if you are a local government entity that tries to cover up the reporting or tries to circumvent the reporting or try to cover up a case of a government official harassing women in the workplace or the sexual assault of women, et cetera, stuff like that, you could lose, among other things, your federal grant status. You could place on high-risk grantee status, your federal grants could be revoked, you could be made to pay fines, and there are just a whole bunch of different civil penalties for the government, for the local government to pay or to be made liable for. That doesn't, of course, include all the criminal liability, the criminal exposure that there is. So the governor's office, for now, is sticking by an inquiry conducted by Director of Communications Janella Carrera, asking two female cabinet members whose jobs are beholden to the governor and the governor alone. They're political appointees. They have no protections whatsoever. Well, the governor's spokeswoman basically conducting this inquiry and getting from these two women, no, nothing happened, when we know otherwise that something did happen. As a matter of fact, Janella Carrera did indicate or did say that there was a quote-unquote disagreement. When we asked her whether anyone's going to investigate this, because obviously there's something there, she, well, danced around that question. But our point is an investigation needs to start now, because the conversation between Janella Carrera and Vera Tapasya cannot be enough to justify that a proper process was conducted or was done to find out more about this. And so we did even more digging throughout today, about Tyrone Taitano and about his history with treatment of people in the workplace. Let me just, before you go to my screen, hold on, let me just bring up some stuff. Let me go ahead and go to my screen. This was from 1998. These were the days when the late Senator Angel Santos, hero to us all, and former Senator Mark Charfris were looking into a lot of the alleged corruption in the Gutierrez administration. And Tyrone Taitano was a member of the governor's office back then. You have to remember, Tyrone Taitano, if the name sounds familiar, it's because he's been a fixture in Guam politics for a very long time. After the Gutierrez administration, he did some private sector shit, then he went right back to working at the legislature. And now he is over at the governor's office as not just any cabinet member, but a director of one of the governor's only 2 bureaus. In this layout of certain allegations about the use of federal funds for political and personal misdeeds by the then Gutierrez administration under number 4, radio talk show hosts have idiotically fallen for the hook and sinker, not to mention the BS line that Charfris somehow violated Hamlet and Tyrone's privacy. Let's think. Tyrone Taitano is a public official using a publicly paid for cell phone, making a call on the public's dime to someone who received money, talking about how to manipulate public talk shows and media regarding the public issue of the misuse of public funds. Sound very private to you? Remember, they were talking via a cell phone, which the cell phone companies explicitly warn are not very private, given the availability of scanners. I have a relative who had a scanner. She was really good at it too. I think they've succeeded in tricking the public into outrage about the possibility that private citizens' private conversations might be recorded, which, if it is happening, is reprehensible. But Charfris was bringing into public a very public issue, and he's been told to shut up about it or he'll go to jail. Now, these were like the real days of savage Guam politics, and Tyrone Taitano was right in the mix of it. And yes, Tyrone Taitano over the years has been involved in these, they call them, what do they call them? It's called black operations. And under black operations, there's, almost every campaign has this room full of mostly GovGuam workers, mostly governor's office employees or unclassifieds from throughout the agencies who pledge their undying loyalty and support to the gubernatorial candidate. And they put them in these rooms, and they have these phones like these, or even the older phones, the touch tone ones with just the receiver, whatever. There'd be anywhere from like 4 to 8 of these phones. People just around them waiting for their turn to call into the John Anderson show or the Ray Gibson show or the Patty Royal show or the Travis Coffin show or whatever, with these pieces of papers that the supervisor on shift, and normally these shifts run from 5:30 in the morning in preparation for the opening of the show at 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., then from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., then from 2 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., or 30 minutes after the close of the 6 p.m. talk shows. And these were scripted phone calls made into talk shows to flood the lines or to flood the airwaves with either good talk about your candidate or shit talk about the opponent. And Tyrone Taitano was one of those in the mix throughout all of these years. That's the kind of person Tyrone Taitano is. How do I know this? Because I used to be involved in this kind of thing. Like, I always hated it. Like, I never liked it. I always thought it was, like, whatever. As a matter of fact, in the Galveston Warriors, I did not get involved in that kind of shit because John Moffness ran it, and John Moffness is stupid. So let's not go to my screen anymore. Let me just hide that. So then there's more. Hold on. Just in case you were thinking that that was just shit talk on a website back in 1998, well, it appears in a Supreme Court opinion penned by then Chief Justice Benjamin J.F. Cruz, and it was affirmed by Associate Justices Peter Seguenza and John Mangalonia, the designated Associate Judge. On page 2 of a 12-page opinion, go ahead and go to my screen. Under the procedural and factual background, remember that Hamlet and that Charfris, those Charfris names? Well, they appear in this court filing. On September 23, 1998, George Hamlet initiated a lawsuit naming Senator Mark Charfris as the defendant. The complaint alleged Charfris received a telephone call from an anonymous caller advising him of the existence of an audio tape and its location outside Charfris's office. The tape apparently contained the unauthorized recording of a conversation between Hamlet and another individual, Tyrone Taitano. Eat that and die, Tyrone. Okay, let's go back. There's even more. This like he's been digging and digging and digging. You know, this is fun stuff. This is the entire lawsuit. We can go back to my screen now. Hamlet versus Charfris in the Supreme Court of Guam. Here, it's all here. After retrieving the audio tape, Charfris disclosed its contents during a regular legislative session. We remember this, right? Unless you're a baby. Charfris submits the playing of the tape was in the context of a legislative debate. This was the whole thing about defamation of character and whatever. First Lady Jerry Gutierrez at the time was hot after this because of all the bad stuff that was going on. And Mark Charfris and Senator Angel Santos were getting very close to corruption allegations making it to the floor of the legislature. These allegations wouldn't surface until 2 years later in the year 2000 by the late Senator Tony Blas. But these seeds were planted in 1998 by Mark Charfris and the late Senator Angel Santos, and Tyrone Taitano was at the heart of it. Yeah, named even in this lawsuit. This is the kind of person Tyrone Taitano is. This is how you know that it's not beyond the scope of imagination that Tyrone Taitano actually would call up Vera Tapasya, all pissed off because Kandit News revealed some sort of scandal happening between, or caused by, him and his wife, Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano, using politics to get their way. Now, what is the way that they're trying to get? We kept digging. And we found a few things. You're not on my screen, right? Tyrone Tyrone also was the administrator of the Guam Memorial Hospital. It's one of his final stints before the end of the Gutierrez administration. In a letter dated March 1998 from Dr. Jan Bollinger to then hospital administrator Tyrone Taitano, the operating room had run out of an item needed to, quote, minimize the risk of infection and loss of function, unquote, of a patient's fractured right forearm. The letter states the patient's arm was saved because the patient was able to be seen at Navy Hospital. Good job there, Tyrone. So Tyrone Tysono, the director of the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, who, together with his wife, wants to take over the multi-$100 million Hagåtña master plan, can't even get clean needles at Guam Memorial Hospital while he was the administrator there. This problem with MRSA infection at the hospital has been going on far longer than even the past two administrations. It goes back to the Gutierrez administration. Now there's more. Hold on. Let's download. Save. And download. You know, we would have never found any of this stuff had Senator Kelly Marsh Tyson just been honest with us about her designs for the Hagåtña master plan and why she was just so hot on taking this thing over by using these very draconian political measures to do so. If she wasn't being such a fake bitch to us, you know, we would have just let it go. But no, now we have to find everything. And find did we do? Go ahead and go to my screen. So we found last year in July that I believe this is the Guam Humanities Council, with money from the Tourist Attraction Fund, granted under new business funding to Laddie in the Marianas, Art Icon Archaeology in the Mariana Islands, a project by Dr. Kelly Marsh and someone named Dr. Jolie Liston. I don't know who that is. Joe Kniatzer reported a sponsorship request of $8,548 was submitted by Dr. Marsh and Dr. Liston to produce a book of the Laddies in the Marianas. The total project cost is $150,000. Partnerships with other agencies include support from the Tourist Attraction Fund, Guam Humanities, and the Northern Marianas Humanities Council. With no further discussion, Chairman McKeel forwarded the request to the Grants Committee for review and further recommendation to the board. Money granted July 2018. This was while she was running for senator. And then she ends up getting oversight of the committee that would fund shit like this. Moral affairs. Very interesting stuff, Senator Kelly Marsh Tyson. And to our knowledge, she has not returned this money. Always follow the money. Always. Now, there's more. Oh, sorry, that was the Guam Preservation Trust. Even worse than the Guam Humanities Council, because the Guam Preservation Trust receives public funding. There's something I'm looking for that I'm not. Hold on 1 second, because there's one more, and this one is actually pretty bad. Okay, I found it. Save. This one is out of left field, just way out of the ordinary. Now, I'm not sure how legal it is for a cabinet member to also be appointed to a board. I can't remember an instance where that's happened, at least in my experience in the Calvo administration. However, in the current administration, Tyrone Saitino, who is the director of the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, was, at least on April 18, 2019, a one-time designated acting board member to the Insurance and Banking Commission. I'm sorry, the Banking and Insurance Board of Directors. In a meeting held, you can go ahead to my screen. In a meeting held April 18 at 2 p.m. in the Directors Conference Room with the Department of Revenue and Taxation, present were Daphne Mansipit Shimizu, who is the chair of the commission because she is the governor actually is the Banking and Insurance Commissioner of Guam. Whenever a conflict exists, like with Governor Calvo, he was conflicted because of the insurance company, right? like with Governor Lulian Guerrero, she's conflicted because of the banking component. They're able to designate the Director of Revenue and Taxation. So that's Daphne Mancipit Shimizu. Also present, Michelle Santos, who's Francis Santos' wife, is the Deputy Director of Revenue and Taxation. That's another interesting one because Francis Santos used to be over at Stable. That was his previous employment. Now he's at Guam Regional Medical Center, but we can get to that another day. The board members, according to this document, are all from the insurance and banking industries. Only one of them is with the government, I believe. So Ray Schnabel, Danilo Rapadas, Kathy Kakigi, Wes Cassidy, Cesar Garcia, and one-time designated acting board member Tyrone Taitano. Very interesting. What in the hell is Tyrone Taitano doing as a one-time designated acting board member? So after the meeting is called to order at 2:11 p.m., and after the minutes of the previous April 5 meeting were adopted, well, it looks like the last meeting that was held was last year in April. So it's the first time they're meeting in a year. On the first order of business, you would think that one of the experienced board members, they would be the ones to do the talking. But no, it's one-time acting designated board member Tyrone Taitano. He makes a motion. It says, proposal of the Insurance Association of Guam regarding pre-licensing, licensing, and continuing education for insurance licenses. Now, that's a big deal. That determines who gets to sell insurance on this island. Mr. Taitano, that's Tyrone, asked Ms. Santos, that's Francis Santos' wife, if the department had reviewed the proposal. Mrs. Cruz, I don't know who's Mrs. Cruz. Oh, Alice Sebastian Cruz, Regulatory Examiner Supervisor. Mrs. Cruz was asked by Mrs. Santos, as requested by Mr. Taitano, to explain what has been discussed by the IAG, Insurance Association of Guam, and Reventax about the proposal. Cruz explained that the department wants to implement the continuing education, which has never been implemented for 30 years. Now, when something hasn't been implemented for 30 years, you have to wonder, why are they trying to implement it all of a sudden? It's something we're very interested to find out, especially since Tyrone Taitano is the one who made this motion. The former banking and insurance commissioner, Mr. Arthur Logan, now employed by Calvo's Insurance, approved the implementation along with the task force that was created for this proposal. Mr. Taitano asked if there is pending recommendation on the proposal from the Insurance Association of Guam. Ms. Cruz stated that the previous proposal, I don't know what WebCE is, for WebCE, for implementation of CE, continuing education, is already ongoing, and the department at IAG is already connected to the continuing education on the web. The new proposal now is we connect to the blah, 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 to give pre-licensing examination. Cruz stated that the department, blah, 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 blah. Mr. Taitano reiterated and asked Ms. Santos if the department has to implement the proposal and if the department has recommendation on the proposal. Santos recommended that the department pay for the cost of pre-licensing exams, and she confirmed it to Mr. Villanueva, DRT Chief of Administration. Santos stated that it will only take 2 to 3 days to fund it using the special fund. They're going to use a special fund. This is very interesting. And it will only take them, the government of Guam has never done anything in 2 to 3 days. They can't even get your tax refunds paid in 2 to 3 days. Yet, they can implement this using special funds, which the governor has very specifically stated from the time of her campaign that she would not touch special funds for things that they're not supposed to be used for. But this can be done in 2 to 3 days. And the governor has executive order that the department can do their own purchasing under $10,000. Very interesting executive order 19-10, to which Tyrone Taitano is sort of the administrator of. And there is no need to go through GSA, no need to go through procurement. Mr. Rapadas moved the approval and seconded by Mr. Stable. The proposal was approved by the 6 board members and the deputy director. I haven't gone through the rest of this, but I will. We will. Because something is rotten in Denmark and it ain't the cheese. There is something very dastardly going on with Tyrone Taitano. And may or may not involve his wife. At least with the Hug on Your Master Plan, it involves his wife. Or his wife might actually be the ringleader of that. But there's something different happening here with the Insurance and Banking Commission. Because one, I don't think it's very legal for a cabinet member to be even a one-day acting designee board member, especially to the Insurance and Banking Commission. Number two, I really don't know what expertise Tyrone Taitano has in this area. He can't even get clean needles at the hospital done. Number three, why was he the first person to talk in this whole matter? And what was the rush in getting this changing 30 years of rules done and funding it using special funds and getting those funds processed within 2 to 3 days from using fiscal processes that conflict directly with the governor's own fiscal policy, yet using the governor's very own executive order to get the procurement through. Something really stinks in this whole thing. And we're gonna get to the bottom of that. Tyrone, did you hear me? You get a call from Erica Badu. So that's that. That's that with Tyrone Taitano for now. We just wanted to bring that to you. Go through that. The sausage making in news media, since the political process won't be so transparent, will be transparent for them and freak them out every step of the way. And who knows? Maybe by tomorrow we'll hear word that Tyrone Taitano threw a chair at somebody because he just can't control his shit, So, a couple things happened over the weekend. So, we'll start with Monday, Memorial Day. Johnny and I went to, for lunch, we went to Liang's restaurant. It's super good, by the way. Like, the Olympia there has really, it's always been the best. Like, they upped it. The Olympia at Liang's, that's the one in Hoffaday Mart or Hoffaday Exchange. They had really good. When we walked in, there was this ugly guy that was looking at us. And so, I smiled because I'm actually a nice person. And then Johnny messages me, Troy, that's Larry and Bobby Ho. And I look over and all I see, so I recognize Larry from the pictures, right? This is Georgine Taitano's ex. And all I see is this thing that looks like a fat lemon. And I guess that's Bobby Ho in a Talkie mustard shirt. And she gained a lot of weight. Like, if I were Georgine, I'd be dancing. Because Bobby Ho ain't dancing. Oh, just for your reference, I think her name is actually Bobby Ho Atoigui Cruz Lastimosa Pokaipi, just whoever she slept with. She is Georgine Taitano. She was Georgine Taitano's mali, and she took her pari from Georgine. And as far as I can tell, talking to Georgine, she says that the Ho can have him because he's balding anyway. And yeah, he is. Georgine, he's ugly, girl. He's ugly. Come on. So Bobby Ho, she gets up, and I noticed then that they're all wearing matching shirts. Even in high school, we would tease shit like that. Like, okay, all right. Like I'm pretty chod, But there is like a level that you're not supposed to cross of chod. It's like at Notre Dame when we were all having our own scandals and there would be fights in the cafeteria. It was like when Lori Cruz found out that Tammy Cepeda was sleeping with Lori's boyfriend Andrew at the time. This is pretty chod. It was like that, and then when Lori got into the gym in the morning, because one of the main areas for the classrooms, the gym was on the second floor. I mean, the classrooms are on the second floor of the gym. And when Lori went up to the lockers, went right up to her best friend Tammy and said, "How does it feel to sleep with your best friend's boyfriend?" And all Tammy said was, "What, bitch?" And Georgine was super pregnant with her son Devin and our friends Amanda. And there were a bunch of us who knew this was gonna happen, and we're just waiting for the. I think Tammy was pregnant too. And Lori's super short, but she's tough, you know. But Tammy's tough too. She's from Agate. And I can't remember. I don't think they fought. I don't think they physically fought because I think people had to break them apart. But you know, all of us chods, we were just just waiting for the fight. So, and then there's that level of chod, right? And then there's Vicky the Hickey level of chod. Hi, Daisy. Vicky was our classmate. No, I think she's a year older. No, she's our age. We just think she was a year older because her boyfriend was definitely much older. And she got dropped to school every morning. Her poor parents thought she was taking the bus. And she got dropped to school in this loud-ass lowrider that her... I won't say how old he was, but he was older. And she'd come to school every morning with a new fucking hickey. Her name was Vicky, so we called her Vicky the Hickey, and she didn't care. She owned that shit. And Mrs. Ganchero, the chemistry teacher, she's Filipino, but with a Chamorro accent because she's been on Guam so long, and she lived in Agate or Santa Rita, and she was like, "Hi, Vicky." "Hi, Vicky. You're supposed to save yourself." Bitch was lost a long time ago. She looked like she had Jaff, but that shit wasn't fungus. Those were hickeys. So there's just a level of chod that you don't cross, right? And like at the Vicky the Hickey level, there's like Bobby Joe, Otoigui, Cruz, Afaisin, Tainatongo, Pakaigui. And she was wearing, she and Larry and some other person they were with were all wearing the same color shirt. And you know what? If they were wearing that at the Relay for Life, it was like 2 fucking days later, okay? That's the only time it's acceptable, is when you're going to the Relay for Life. That's when you wear the same shirt, or when you're going to a fucking 5K. But it was 2 in the damn afternoon at Liang's restaurant. There was no excuse for that whatsoever. Plus, it was Memorial Day, and none of those shirts said, "In memoriam of Merry Christmas and Happy America." Okay? So, that was just fucking John. You know what? Georgine ended up getting the good end of this stick because now, like Bobby Ho will forever, the Bobby Ho files will forever be part of the show. And anytime she ever posts anything, or anytime Larry ever cries to the court that his life is ruined because Georgine Titano is telling her friend Troy Torres to post all of their dirty laundry on this show or on Mariana's Dirty Laundry. Well, Larry, you reap what you sow, buddy. You reap what you sow. And to that end, Saturday night I went out for the first time in a very long time. And yeah, I got drunk. I had fun. Shout out to Christy Blas, my good friend for a number of years. She wasn't able to go out, but her cousin came from the States, and so Christy's husband was bringing her cousin out. And so I hung out with them. And it was awesome because they're both super hot. So, so God bless you, Christy. God bless you, because it like improved my stock, you know, like I got to hang out with these the straight, and for a good portion of my ears, ringing, we had to hear discussions about straight man things. It's like, so in turn, I made sure they heard my discussions about gay man things. Well, it's very interesting going out Saturday night. Now I'll tell you a little bit about my personal life. And boy, oh boy, some people are going to cringe. So I couldn't help but be disgusted at the looks and the winks that I got from my ex-boyfriend's friends. And then as I opened my Grindr account to look at messages, I'm thinking, or on my Messenger too, I'm thinking, God damn these hoes. Wow. Calling yourselves friends. Huh? Not my friends. They're not my friends. They're my ex-boyfriend's friends. This is something from Ariana's dirty laundry, huh? Let me get a cigarette for this one. I'm sure I'll get in trouble. But it's okay, because at the very least, I'll be telling the truth, and I won't be trying to deceive anybody. Oh, the news is over. So if you were just wanting more news, that's done. You can sign off or whatever. We're on the trash talk portion of the show right now. How do I put this? In my journey to be the best person that I can be, and to make up for the shitty things that I've done to people who quite possibly didn't deserve it. Part of that involves a finding out and letting out of the truth about certain things. For 2 years, I have been quite inebriated, numb, actually, to my life. And it was because at the time I thought I needed to be. There were a lot of what I thought were hurtful things. And so, not only was I nice on ice, but I also ignored a lot of things. I was also very gullible about certain things. And I allowed myself to listen to what others had to say without verifying, without checking it out. That was my mistake. But, see, that pales in comparison to the mistake that his friends made by thinking that, number one, I would never find out, and number two, that when I did, I would never do anything about it. Oh, you're gravely mistaken. See, if you think for a second that the worst thing that could happen to me is losing a day of freedom, and look at all the damage I did to retaliate against the people who did that to me. Imagine how much more damage that I would do to avenge the wrong that was done to me and to the people who I loved. See, over the past couple of weeks, as I've been newly single, not trying to mingle, just trying to get my life, my brain, my heart in order, I have thought about the past, because I need to. I need to make things right with certain things. I'm not trying to go back to the past and relive it for the sake of living that life again, but I am trying to make amends. And I'll tell you that in comparing notes and in digging into this past and being sober and remembering different things and things just flooding on back, I have come to discover that there were certain people who did and said certain things that were very wrong and that were lies about me and my ex-boyfriend. So I wanted to take this opportunity, since I seem to have his friend's attention, to issue a warning. Now, just know that before I was ever a political person, I was always a gay person. And these skills that we have, these skills that I have, you know, this ability to find things out and then to do things about that. You might want to call it revenge. You call it even Steven or whatever. Don't think that I wouldn't do that in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. To make things right. So I will. So here's a little warning to those so-called friends of my ex-boyfriend who told him things that were not true. You've got 48 hours to confess. Not to me, but to him, about what you did and what you said. And if you don't, and you people know who you are, if you don't, I'll rip the Band-Aid off myself. I've got all the text messages and the videos to prove it too. And if you don't believe me about the videos, well, who do you think is the star of that video on Mariana's dirty laundry, huh? I wouldn't hesitate for a second to release anything to Alicia Kanata and Cedric Maravilla. Not 1 second. So try me. Good night, everyone.